Okay everyone, now you should be getting close to the end of your turmeric milk or golden milk cleanse, and now we're going to talk about where to go from here. So first I want to say congratulations. From the emails I'm getting, a lot of you are starting to feel a million times better, which is really great, and I want to make sure we continue down this road. Healing leaky gut, luckily this golden milk really gives you a big jump start, but oftentimes it does take months, sometimes up to a couple years, depending on how bad your leaky gut is. So especially if you have things like Crohn's disease or colitis and stuff like that, it's going to really take some time in order to completely heal that whole gut. If you actually turn all that surface area out and open, it'd be as big as a tennis court. So it takes a little while to basically heal every single little area in your gut that may be damaged. So I just want to reiterate real quick, it's the 5 R's that really heal leaky gut. First, we repair it. That's why I start you right away on that golden milk. That golden milk is just, that turmeric is huge anti-inflammatory, so it really goes in and reduces a lot of the inflammation. On top of that, coconut milk will go and cover those inflamed areas and allow them to really reduce and start to heal up. Okay, so as you end the 18 days of the golden milk, you still want to keep up the turmeric. In fact, you're going to want to do this for a while. I believe all supplements should be supplements, but this turmeric you're probably going to take, like I said, for a couple months up to a year until you really start to feel better. And what I recommend doing is taking 1 gram of turmeric a day, so 500 milligrams in the morning and 500 milligrams at night. Whether you choose to move to a capsule form, which might be a little bit easier for some of you, or you can use the powdered form and just use it in smoothies and things like that that you make in the morning or in the evening. The other thing is you want to keep up that glutamine. That glutamine is the most important amino acid in your body, and especially in that intestinal tract. It's really what helps build up all those enterocytes and allows you to create all those enzymes that are going to help break down your food for you. I recommend 20 grams a day still, 10 in the morning and 10 at night. Again, you can get this in powdered form, which I actually prefer, or you can also do capsule form. Again, just kind of mix it with a little bit of water. It's pretty neutral tasting, so it goes down really smooth. Keep up the mineral broths in your diet. Those mineral broths are huge natural whole food remedies that actually go in and give your body basically all the building blocks it's going to need in order to heal and repair itself. And then I've had a couple people ask me, do I need to be taking digestive enzymes? And that's a good question. So when our gut is unhealthy, you say if we have like a broken ankle, we're going to actually walk on crutches to allow that ankle some time to heal. There's no real good way to basically put your gut on crutches or to give it a break. So the best way to do that is to eat foods that are basically already digested or already broken down, so your gut has to do less of the work. And what that means oftentimes is cooking. Cooking your food will break down all those little cells so those nutrients are easily absorbable in your body. The other way is eating fermented foods. That bacteria is going to break it down outside of the body first, and so when you eat it, you absorb it. It's a lot easier on your digestive tract. And then lastly, digestive enzymes. You can choose to supplement with digestive enzymes, things like papaya enzyme, which help break down your food for a little bit. But I really recommend people taking betaine HCl. And what that is it actually drives your stomach acid low. And you want your stomach acid to be close to 1. In fact, most stomach acid should be around 1 to 3. I think that lower the better, because that acid is what actually breaks apart all your food into the more basic forms, so that then the bacteria can break it down even further and you can absorb it in your intestinal tract. And some people might be saying like, oh, well, I have GERD, I have acid reflux, I already take some type of GERD medication like a H2 blocker or a PPI, these common things that are often sometimes some of the first things that Western medicine practitioners will prescribe you. Unfortunately, here's what happens, and this is why I really believe in functional medicine, is functional medicine doctors, a lot of them still MD and DOs, they actually will ask the question, why are you producing so much stomach acid? And they'll get to the root of the problem. But instead, under Western medicine practices, they'll give you a pill that just increases your stomach acid. So you don't have it basically takes away the symptoms or the problems of it without addressing the real issue of it. And that's where you start to run into problems. And now the latest research is actually showing both H2 blockers and PPIs dramatically increase the rates of dementia and Alzheimer's, especially as you get older. And what I've seen over and over and over again, this is one of the first things that Western medicine does that starts to negatively affect how you break down your food, and then you start to develop gastrointestinal issues, nutrient deficiencies, and then basically cause leaky gut because you're not breaking down your food properly in your gut. Your stomach was meant to be very, very acidic, and in a healthy stomach, it can handle that really, really high acidity. And now that you've actually gone through your 18-day golden milk cleanse, I would suggest, again, under physician approval, but suggest trying to go off your GERD medication and see if you actually need it anymore. A number of people I've helped just don't need their acid reflux medications at all because that inflammation has actually been cured, and then you've re-healed up that whole intestinal tract even within that stomach layer, and so you don't have the issues causing the stomach acid to be basically churning all of the time. And so if you supplement with betaine HCl, what you're doing is you're driving down the stomach acid, and that low stomach acid is what actually activates your pepsin enzyme. And those enzymes is what break down a lot of your proteins. And if you're not breaking down your proteins, it's another reason why things like gluten can actually get absorbed through your intestinal wall because it doesn't get broken down properly. And then people have issues with it. So if we break it down properly to all its amino acids before it gets absorbed, then you don't have these types of problems. And so I recommend taking betaine HCl capsules to help you basically create your own natural stomach acids and kind of jumpstart your body into producing its own natural enzymes in order to break down those foods. If you do want to, you can also just eat papaya. Get some fresh papaya. The seeds are really beneficial. They have huge antibacterial properties to them. And there's a lot of vitamins right underneath the skin. So I always recommend people taking at least a little bit of the skin and maybe a couple of those seeds with some of the bites of that papaya and eat it with your meals, and you're going to actually have those enzymes which will help break down your food properly. Next thing we talked about is removing the toxins. The main things being processed foods, just tons of chemicals and stabilizers and everything else that your body isn't used to seeing, and so it gets leaked in and hyperactivates your immune system. You want to decrease that. One of the big issues too is the amount of sugar we're actually eating in our diet. Feeding the yeast, feeding the dyssymbiosis. It's really important to start eliminating all that processed sugar. And sometimes I've dealt with people who, if you are, again, have Crohn's or colitis or things like that that are really advanced stages of the leaky gut, then you might even have to avoid fruit for a while because even that fruit is going to basically, those fruit sugars are going to feed that yeast overgrowth, and you need to work for a long time to basically clear out that yeast before you can introduce some of those things. That's also why I tell people to avoid a lot of carbs initially, because any of that like white flour, pizzas, breads, those kind of things end up just breaking down into sugars very quickly and can feed that bad bacteria. Doesn't mean you have to avoid it for forever, but a lot of times initially you're going to reduce the gas, reduce the IBS symptoms and everything else until you can actually heal that gut and then get it rebalanced with good probiotics. And then the organic issue. So a lot of people say, is it really important? It's so expensive. Well, a couple things. Yes, it's really that important. That glycophosphate, through a process called the Shikimate pathway, actually kills the beneficial bacteria in your gut. On top of that, most of those non-organic foods are going to have tons and tons of pesticides in them that even by washing them, they still, a number of them often remain. It's really, really important as much as you can to switch over to eating organic foods. Now I get that it can be expensive, but here's where there's a little bit of a myth. It's mostly expensive if you are eating a boxed food. Any of the organic boxed foods or processed foods and stuff like that, those margins are really, really high. So that cost starts to grow up dramatically. But if you are actually eating organic fruit, whole fruits and vegetables in season, they're often just a little bit more than your industrial counterparts, and you're going to save so much money on your health that it's just completely worth it. Now, sometimes you just can't. Either you can't find it in your store or whatever, or you're just, that short on money, and I get it. So you definitely have to look up the Dirty Dozen. Anything that's a root vegetable, you never want to eat that's not organic. All those root vegetables stay in the soil, and they basically absorb all those chemical pesticides year over year over year, and then it gets all absorbed absorbed into those root vegetables. So your onions, your potatoes, your carrots, things like that, you always want to buy organic. And especially things like berries, they use a lot of pesticides on those, and apples, they use a lot of pesticides on those. So you never want to eat those unless they're organic, because there's just so many pesticides on it, it's not worth it. Things that do have thick skins, so things like avocados and bananas and some citrus, oftentimes you can get away with, especially if you're, watching your wallet, by buying non-organic, because that thick outer peel oftentimes shields the inner fruit for the most part. But then you also have some of the environmental issues you need to keep out for, because those workers oftentimes have to work with those pesticides, and then they're the ones that end up with the cancers and the other health issues. And then now that we've talked about removing some of those inflammatory foods, things like the soys, the glutens, things like that, you can start to slowly reintroduce, the dairy especially, you can start to slowly reintroduce and see how your body reacts to it. Keep a food journal, and now that you've recalibrated your body using this 18-day golden milk cleanse, your body is going to be readjusted to actually start telling you very quickly whether that food is good for you or it's not good for you. So again, we're replacing all these foods with whole organic foods as much as possible. And you want to keep up those mineral broths. Those mineral broths just contain tons and tons of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that are going to be very, very essential for healing up that gut and repairing your health. The fourth R, rebalance. We want to keep eating those fermented foods. Like I said, a bite a day will really be hugely beneficial. Those are the kimchis, the sauerkrauts, the pickles, the yogurts, kefirs, things like that. And then I think it is beneficial to take a probiotic. Just know that those probiotics are often maintenance doses. And you often want to take your probiotics 2 hours before or 2 hours after your turmeric, just because that turmeric, especially in those high doses, can be kind of generally antibacterial. And you want to give those probiotics the best opportunity to really thrive and take hold in your gut. So we're rebalancing our intestinal flora. And now that we've done the 18 days of our golden milk cleanse, we've cleared out a lot of the yeast, and our body is now ready to accept a lot of the good beneficial bacteria. So I really recommend, it's Garden of Life's Raw Probiotics. It's a 5-day max care, so you do it for 5 days. And each scoop provides 400 billion probiotics that go in and basically completely rebalance your whole intestinal flora. It's very, very beneficial, and it's very healing, especially after your 18-day golden milk cleanse. The next thing is we recalibrate. So now that we've done that golden milk cleanse, we've actually recalibrated our body. We removed a lot of the toxins. We've recalibrated our body so we can actually start listening to our body. It can get really confusing if you are trying to follow this diet, this new fad diet over here, or I think it gets really confusing when people start trying to say, look at this nutrient or avoid this nutrient and everything else. I think the best way to do it is to just start to basically eat cleaner every single day. And there's 3 things that I think really help you do that. One, a lot of nutrition research is just underfunded. Most medical doctors never receive any type of nutrition or diet training, when really 70% of the diseases in the Western world are actually diet preventable diseases. So there's just a huge disconnect between Western medicine and the diet health connection. 2, unfortunately, a lot of the nutrition research is underfunded, and that often means that what does get funded is often bias funded. It's funded by people who are looking for certain answers. And we're going to share some YouTube videos with you about a doctor who really saw a lot of the problems within current medical research that really shows a majority of the content that always gets published is positive findings. I think it's over 3/4 of it is positive findings. So if it shows something negative, it never gets published, and then nobody ever knows about it. Oftentimes too, if the results aren't what the researchers wanted to find, it also never gets published. And so unless you go digging and start to find out what didn't get published, which can be really difficult, there's a lot of misleading information behind saying like, oh, well, this is research based. The other thing is oftentimes in Western medicine, we have to wait till an accumulation of research starts to combine, and that often means that it's 10 plus years behind what's actually happening today. And that's the sad state of affairs right now, is so many people are having so many dietary issues because what we've done to food in this country, that we can't wait another 10 years to try to help these people out. So what's going on is functional medicine practitioners are actually using some of the frontline research combined with what they're seeing in clinical practice, and they're sharing that information in clinical practice so we can take the research where it's pointing to, try it out on the patients and see if they improve, and we're starting to see huge amounts of success from that. And what that is pointing to is that most of our health really resides in our microbiome, because if we don't have a healthy microbiome, we actually aren't digesting our food properly. That's, again, one reason why organic is so important. There was a recent Stanford University research paper that came out that showed a healthy group of mice fed a healthier diet versus the standard American diet. And after 4 generations, the mice on the standard American diet became so ill that even switching them over to eating healthier foods, it was too late. What happened was the diversity of their microbiome had decreased by so much that they could not be fixed by just eating healthy foods. And that's why organic is actually so important. And the only way that they could actually reverse some of those trends is through things called fecal transplants. And that's what helps show why this microbiome is so important, why probiotics and fermented foods are so important, is that when people get really sick, what we do is we basically take the healthy flora or microbiome from somebody else's through their poop, we freeze dry it, put it in a pill, and then give it to that sick individual. And it really repopulates. You want to talk about trillions and trillions of bacteria coming in to reinforce the microbiome of that individual. That's what's happening during a fecal transplant. So research is definitely one angle to look at it. I do believe in research, but I also believe it has some limitations. So we have to take those into consideration. The next thing is looking at what is happening in clinical practice in functional medicine. And these functional medicine practitioners are on the ground, and they're actually curing people of Crohn's and colitis and autism and things that were previously thought of as incurable. And we can take and see that there's consistent patterns across the board about what they're doing and what's working, and then we can apply them to you. And that's basically what I've built here through this golden milk recipe and through the probiotic supplements is that combination. The last piece that I think is really important is now that you've recalibrated your body, you need to start listening to your body, because every time you eat something, oftentimes within 20-30 minutes and even up to a couple hours, your body is going to feel that. And so once you really cleanse and get rid of all the sugar and the toxins and things like that, when you go back to eating some of those sugary foods or eating some of those really fried foods, you're not going to feel that good. It's going to zap your energy, or you're going to feel really wired from the sugar. You need to start listening to that. That's your body telling you that this isn't right for you. Or for instance, if you're eating dairy and you're starting to have more digestive issues, or your acne is starting to break out again, things like that, then dairy probably isn't a good substance for you. Okay, so I know we've covered a lot of ground, but like I said, I've been hearing from a lot of you. You're starting to feel a lot better. You have some questions. Please keep them coming. Email me. Let me know how it's working, what's not working. I can help you out along the way. I think that concludes it right now for really getting a jump start on healing that leaky gut. We're going to cover, I think, a few more things in depth later on, depending on what questions you guys have later. But thanks for staying tuned, and in good health. I'll talk to you later.